A quiet Brooklyn morning. A crosswalk in Brownsville. Two cars that didn't stop. Kianna Underwood, a former Nickelodeon kid whose voice and face were part of so many late 90s and 2000s childhoods, is gone at 33. NYPD says she was crossing at Watkins Street and Pitkin Avenue around 6:50 a.m. when a black Ford SUV struck her, followed moments later by a black and gray sedan. Both drivers fled. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The collision investigation squad is on it. No arrests yet. If the name rings a bell, it's because you've heard it or heard her before. Underwood voiced Fuskia Glover in Little Bill for 5 years, 1999–2004, carried sketches on Nickelodeon's All That in 2005, popped up opposite Rosie Perez and Patti LuPone in The 24-Hour Woman, and took a swing at hip-hop satire in Death of a Dynasty. She wasn't just on screens. She was in the room. A year on the road as Little Inez in the first national tour of Hairspray, a role that demands breath, stamina, and joy every night. Born in New York City, she later moved to Los Angeles and kept stitching a career together, as so many child actors do: voice booth, set, stage, repeat. The facts are hard, the loss is heavier, but there's a person here beyond the headline. This is for her: what happened, what she made, how to hold this without turning it into speculation, and where to look if you want to help without doing harm. We'll keep to receipts, not rumors. We'll center respect, and we'll leave space for grief that doesn't perform for the timeline. Here, what's on the record. On Friday, January 16, 2026, at approximately 6:50 a.m. local time, Kianna Underwood was crossing Watkins Street at Pitkin Avenue in Brooklyn's Brownsville neighborhood when a black Ford SUV hit her. Moments later, a black and gray sedan also struck her. According to the New York Police Department, both drivers left without rendering aid. Emergency responders pronounced Underwood dead at the scene. Her age, 33. NYPD confirmed there have been no arrests. The Highway District's Collision Investigation Squad is handling the case. That means evidence collection, canvassing for surveillance, witness interviews, vehicle part trace work, and the slow-motion puzzle that reconstructs seconds after the fact. If you've never watched one of these investigations unfold, they are painstaking by design. Speed solves sometimes. Care solves more often. What we don't have and won't guess at are motives, identities, or any specifics beyond vehicle descriptions. That's not coyness. It's caution. Cases like this harden fast into rumor if you let the internet fill gaps police haven't. The only questions that matter to investigators right now are technical: angle of impact, speed ranges, visibility, flight routes. The answers live in cameras and fragments, not threads. Language matters. Hit and run isn't shorthand for malice, it's a legal description. A collision where a driver leaves without stopping to check on the victim, exchange information, or contact authorities. It's a crime because minutes are oxygen. Staying saves lives. Leaving compounds harm. In the hours after a crash, you'll see names, tips, and identifications pop up on social media. Don't share them. If you were in the area or your doorbell cam covers the intersection, contact the NYPD tip line or the Collision Investigation Squad directly through official channels. That's how you help without endangering innocent people or torpedoing a case. Right now, the official track is simple: a loss acknowledged, an investigation underway, and a family facing a day no one plans for. Hold that frame while we widen the lens to the life that came before this corner. The first place a lot of viewers heard Kianna Underwood was a living room, not a theater. From 1999 to 2004, she voiced Fuskia Glover in Little Bill, Nickelodeon's preschool series created by Bill Cosby and based on the books by Varnett P. Honeywood and Cosby. Set aside your adult arguments about creators for a moment. Focus on the kids in front of the TV. Little Bill taught them how to be in a world with feelings. Fuskia, curious, outspoken, a ride-along friend, was part of that chorus. 23 episodes is a long time to be a familiar voice. It's also a clinic in craft. Voice acting asks you to carry a character with no props, no marks, no audience to calibrate to. If it works, it's because your ear learned to feel like a hand. Underwood's early credits mapped a path a lot of New York kids walk. Start with voices, catch a feature, aim for sets that feel like master classes. In The 24-Hour Woman, she shared space on a film with Rosie Perez, Marion Jean-Baptiste, and Patti LuPone, names that teach by proximity. You learn how to hit a mark, take a note, and trust a director who's too busy to coddle. Later, she took a small role in Death of a Dynasty, a satirical look at the hip-hop industry with young Kevin Hart energy in the mix. It wasn't a prestige corridor. It was a portfolio, pieces you put together until they look like a life. New York makes actors practical by necessity. Subway auditions, schools that won't bend, families who say yes to 4 a.m. call times and no to big heads. That's the world Kianna came up in, a city that treats ambition like weather, constant, inconvenient, occasionally stunning, and impossible to ignore. It's also a city that teaches you to listen. Maybe that's why her voice roles landed. Kids believe you when you sound like you're talking to them, not at them. Underwood's career choices at this stage look like a kid building with what's available. The booth, the set, the occasional stage. Which brings us to the series that made so many Nickelodeon names recognizable before they figured out who they were going to be. All That Was Nickelodeon's Sketch Comedy Lab, a place where kids learned the beats of a live audience, the brutality of cue cards, and the joy of committing to a bit you barely had time to rehearse. Kianna Underwood logged her All That credit in 2005, late in the series, original run and squarely in the show's second wind groove. Think gag speed, quick changes, and a writer's room translating kid logic into punchlines that adults laughed at too. All That alumni have a way of showing up everywhere later. Talk shows, voice booths, SNL, sitcoms, dramas. Kenan Thompson, the longest-tenured SNL cast member, is the most famous example from the All That universe. That's the context Kianna lived in. A show that launched careers by teaching kids to take a flop, find a camera, and respect an audience that will turn on you if you lie. If you can hit a sketch that lives for 90 seconds and dies if you blink, you can handle a lot of what this business throws at you later. Underwood's TV swing didn't turn into a mega-fame arc, and that's not a failure. It's a choice and a reality. Most working actors don't become household names. They become the glue you don't notice holding scenes together. They stack credits, pay rent, and carry quiet pride in moments the world forgot. That dignity matters. It's the difference between treating an obituary like a resume and treating it like a record of craft. If you want verified updates and respectful remembrances to reach the right people and not get buried under rumor, tap like. It helps this find more viewers who care about the work as much as the headline. Because Kianna didn't stop at screens. She took the breath control she learned in a booth and the timing she learned on All That onto a stage that demands both every single night. Underwood spent a year on the road in the first national tour of Hairspray, playing Little Inez. If you don't know the show, Little Inez is dynamite, young, fierce, a heartbeat inside a story about who gets to be seen and who gets to dance. On tour, that role is a clock, 8 shows a week, travel days where the bus rattles your spine, warm-ups in rooms that smell like old curtains and vinyl seats, new acoustics every night, different crowds every city. It's fun when you're 20. It's work when you hit City 60. It's a gift the whole time if you love it. Tour life is also community. Kids on stage are everyone's kids, with parents and guardians in the wings and a company that learns every cough, every missed note, every eye that looks too tired. You get good at 2 things fast: taking care of yourself and taking care of the person who's too stubborn to admit they're gassed. If you can do that for a year and keep your spark, you walk off tour with a skill set a lot of jobs could use: endurance with empathy. Hairspray is also a show about integration in more ways than one. On stage, it's the plot. Off stage, it's the rehearsal room, dancers, singers, band, crew, swings, dressers, carpenters, stage managers, all making a machine that lives and dies by trust. Kianna lived inside that for a year. That's not a bullet point. That's a culture you carry. Actors don't always get credit for the stage roles that sharpen them because screen credits dominate. Don't make that mistake here. The stamina and joy little Inez asks for map cleanly onto the voice kid and the sketch kid we already met. It's a through line. Give your whole body to the story, even when the house is half full. That's a craft choice and a character one. Born in New York, later relocated to Los Angeles, that's the paper trail. The space between those two cities is where working actors live. New York trains your ear and your feet. Los Angeles trains your patience and your smile. In both places, Kianna Underwood carved out a lane that looks smaller on IMDb than it feels in days. Audition lines, callbacks, short gigs that keep you solvent and sharp, voice sessions where your laugh is the note people keep, readings where you're the one who nails the rhythm and gives the room permission to relax. The years between child actor flashes and adult actor stability are an obstacle course. Identity isn't a costume change, it's a negotiation. You decide what you keep: timing, work ethic, joy, and what you refuse: pressure to be a version of your kid self. You learn to say, I'm not that anymore and I'm better at this now. The industry doesn't always listen, so you show them, one day at a time. What outsiders miss about in between years is this: they're the whole job for most people. You take a booking because it fits your week. You skip a booking because it doesn't fit your soul. You say yes to a friend's short because you trust their eye. You say no to a meeting because you trust your gut. You go to class because craft can calcify if you don't stretch it. You call home. You feed yourself. You keep going. Reports say Kianna moved west after starting in New York. That's a migration as old as cameras. It says less about ambition than about chasing rooms where your chances multiply. Anyone who's done that understands the courage it takes to be a beginner again in a city that keeps score differently. That courage is part of this story. Keep it in frame. It would be easy to leave this to senseless tragedy and move on. It's harder and more honest to put Kianna Underwood's death in context without turning her into a symbol. Hit and runs are a stubborn reality in urban America, including New York. Vision Zero era or not, drivers who strike pedestrians and leave are a percentage the city has never gotten down to zero. Brownsville is not an outlier. It's a neighborhood with the same mix of speed, distraction, and street design stressors that make vulnerable road users vulnerable. But the point isn't to make a map. It's to explain why don't share rumors isn't just a politeness. Leaving a scene is a crime because a minute matters. Nomming a suspect on social media who isn't a suspect is harm. Posting a plate number without context is harm. Throwing out "it was probably" is harm. The NYPD Highway District's Collision Investigation Squad has a process that isn't Instagram fast because it's court slow. Evidence rules demand it. If you want accountability, you want that process run clean. It's not vibes, it's chain of custody. What can you do that isn't thoughts and prayers? If you live near Watkins and Pitkin, pull your doorbell or dashcam footage from the time window and contact NYPD through official channels. If you're a driver in the area whose car matches the broad description and you realize you might have been there, call a lawyer and do the right thing. If you're a neighbor who knows the intersection is a problem, channel grief into the meeting where design gets changed, not the comment section where it gets shouted. The careful way to talk about Kianna now is to keep her a person first and a context second. Yes, this is part of a bigger pattern. No, she is not a statistic. Hold both truths, and leave room for the people who loved her to be messy without having to perform their pain for strangers. Tributes will come. Some may already be out there by the time you see this. Colleagues post photos, friends post stories, fans post clips. There's an etiquette we don't teach that we should. Amplify what the family or official reps signal. Share clips that center her work, Fuskia Glover lines in Little Bill, all that bits, that hairspray bow if you've got it, over paparazzi shots or party candids that belong to a different time and audience. Credit original sources. Don't tag people who aren't public. Be careful with grief content. If you don't know the person, don't speculate about the person they were. Use their credits and their public quotes as anchors. Save the adjectives. If you did know them, share one specific that doesn't flatten them into a trope, a warm-up ritual before the show, a joke she always told in the green room, a time she spotted a young actor struggling and crossed the room to offer a trick that saved their audition. Those details matter. They're the human in the headline. Avoid the white knight trap. She deserved better is true and useless. Here's one way to help is better. If official fundraising appears, funeral expenses, support for family, verify it before you share. Look for names you recognize, organizations that co-sign, and transparency that doesn't feel performative. If none of that surfaces, you can still do something. Watch an episode, share a clip that made your day easier when you were a kid, write a note that will make her name feel held. Finally, don't interrogate the grieving. If you DM a friend of the family or comment what happened under a relative's post, you've already told on yourself. They owe you nothing. Let their pace set yours. There's a strange way we talk about former child actors, like their first role froze them in amber. That's not real life. Kianna Underwood was a kid who worked early and kept working, not as a superstar, but as a professional. She carried 23 episodes as a voice in a show built to teach kids kindness. She landed on Nickelodeon's sketch flagship at a point where it was a campus for comic timing. She did feature bits and kept her skills warm. She took a role on a national tour that stakes only go to when creative teams trust you won't miss. That's a resume without a neat arc, and that's how most people's lives look when you're not writing a press release. The value isn't in fame or the lack of it. It's in the fact that she kept showing up to rooms where craft happens. If you've ever listened to a preschooler repeat the same line from a show and watched it help them navigate a scary day, you know voice actors do more than read words. If you've ever sat in a seat and felt a show's energy shift because a young actor brought more life to a role than the script demanded, you know touring companies are families that produce more than paycheck art. The former Nickelodeon star tag headline's use is functional. It's also misleading in a way that can flatten a person into an era. Better to say this. She was a working actor across mediums who hit the marks that never trend, show up, be ready, leave the room better than you found it. That's the craft she leaves behind. It's quieter than a blockbuster. It's just as real. If you grew up with Little Bill or All That in Your House, you have more to do than scroll. Start by revisiting the work. Watch an episode. Share a clip on your feed with one line about how it hit you then and what you hear now. If you were a Hairspray fan, share the cast recording and mark the moment little Inez takes a bow. It's a role that lives in movement and music in a way no camera can catch. Keep your language clean. Tragic is a word. It's not a plan. Choose verbs. Donate to a local traffic safety org if you want to channel grief into prevention. Attend a community board meeting if you live in the precinct and the intersection needs design attention. Ask the people who live there what would help. Boost an official Crime Stoppers post if NYPD releases one. Those reach the right eyes when the right fans share them. Respect the quiet. You don't need to tag Kianna's family or friends to be seen as supportive. In fact, the kindest support is often invisible to them. Let their phones breathe. If memorial plans become public, follow instructions instead of inventing your own. If nothing becomes public, honor in place on your own time with your own people. Report rumor accounts. If you see posts nomming suspects without NYPD attribution or doxing vehicles with zero evidence, report them. That's not snitching. That's preventing harm and helping a case breathe. Carry the name forward gently. Kianna Underwood deserves to be said like you would in a house, not shouted like a trend. Stick to official channels for updates. The NYPD press office and verified precinct accounts will post developments, requests for information, vehicle descriptions, Crime Stoppers rewards, arrest notices if and when they happen. Credible outlets like the one that reported her death will update their stories with new facts. Third hand, a friend of a friend knows, isn't a source. Screenshots of anonymous DMs aren't evidence. If a family spokesperson or representative issues a statement, treat that as the North Star. Share it if asked. Don't interrogate it. If memorial or fundraising details appear, look for verification. Family names, known orgs, co-signs from production companies or unions if applicable. Avoid the pattern where a victim's name disappears and the drivers become the story. Accountability matters. So does centering the person who was harmed. Balance your attention. If arrests happen, don't flood your feed with perpetrators' details like trophies. Focus on the system, how investigators did their work, how the case moves through court, how outcomes tie back to the behaviors that make streets safer. Remember that grief timelines don't match news cycles. When the hashtags fade, the people who loved Kianna Underwood will still be living in the same city, walking past the same corner, and navigating the same absence. If all you can offer later is a story about how a line she read made you feel safer when you were 5, that's enough. Save it. Share it then. Headline is brutal. The person behind it was brilliant in the way working actors so often are: steady, present, more responsible for our culture's background warmth than they ever get credit for. Kianna Underwood's life traced a familiar arc for a certain kind of New York to L.A. artist. Voice booths, sketch stages, touring buses, sets where your job is to hit your mark and make the moment feel alive enough for a stranger to remember it later. She did that. For 5 years in Little Bill. In a 2005 All That bit. In a year's worth of Hairspray bows. On days we didn't see because they weren't trending. Her death, struck by 2 vehicles in a Brooklyn crosswalk whose drivers didn't stop, is part of an ugly statistic and a singular loss. Both truths hold. The investigation is ongoing. There are no arrests yet. The most helpful things you can do are ordinary. Don't spread rumors. Share official calls for information if they appear. Watch what she made and tell someone what it meant to you. Donate to safety work if you have means. Be kinder in traffic. Be kinder in comments. Drop your memory below, your favorite Little Bill clip, the all that joke that still sneaks up on you, a night you left Hairspray humming a little in as moment. Keep it specific. Keep it respectful. We'll moderate for dignity and amplify tributes that center her work. And if you want more careful, receipt-based updates in your feed instead of noise, hit like so the algorithm learns what you're here for. For Kianna, a name said gently. For her family, peace. For the rest of us, the reminder that the people we grew up with on TV were as real as we are, and they deserve to be remembered that way.